I am a true believer, and hopefully living proof, that one's professional career and success depend on a multitude of factors. First of all, there's your background, education, and specific skills. Then, of course, there's an element of luck to it, and inevitably, the way you present yourself and speak, your posture, and even the way you dress. Let me tell you where it all started. I studied biology and spent 4 years in a lab during my PhD and postdoc. In the scientific world, there is a strict requirement to wear a lab coat and other protective gear, first of all, for your own safety, and of course to ensure the sterility of the experiment. The higher you go up in biosafety level classification, the more protection you need to wear. Therefore, you spend most of the time in a uniform, so to say, and only take it off when you're at the desk or when you go for lunch. This results in a very relaxed approach to what you wear under the lab coat. Anything comfortable, casual, basically jeans and t-shirt, or sweaters are perfect. Consequently, if you're presenting at a department seminar, for example, you take off your lab coat and you show up in those jeans and t-shirt, that's the norm. I did notice that a couple of lab managers and those aspiring to become such did wear casual blazers and looked a tad more dressed up. But they also didn't have to wear lab coats, as at their seniority level, they didn't do any wet lab work anymore. There were a couple of people, though, on campus that walked around in suits or business casual outfits. They would sometimes come to our lab manager's office for short discussions, or I'd see them in the canteen over lunch. I was quite intrigued by these guys, mostly guys, but occasionally some women as well. Turned out they were part of the direction, starting with the director of the institute himself and his team of business developers and heads of responsible for finance, technology transfer, patents, and so on. They would have meetings with government officials, public health representatives, donors, industry partners, banks. Of course, they needed to look the part. This is when it hit me that beyond the lab bench, there is a whole world of managers that make sure that funding, space, and infrastructure is there to actually conduct this lab work. And I got curious about this business world that I knew absolutely nothing about. I started wondering how I could get closer to understanding what these people do and whether any of that is a potential career track for myself. How do I do it being in the midst of my PhD with everyday priorities revolving around growing enough yeast to immunize my mice, test my vaccine prototype? Two promising events were looming on the horizon. First, there was a meeting of the European Vaccine Initiative that supports the development of vaccines for diseases of poverty. It gathers both academic and industry researchers, as well as policymakers and NGOs to help drive projects that enable vaccine development and access to vaccines. This was relevant to me for two reasons. First, purely professionally, I was working on a potential malaria vaccine in a delivery system that, if successful, would make the vaccine very cheap and therefore a good solution for third world countries where malaria is a huge public health issue. Secondly, I could glimpse into the world of vaccines and public health that lies beyond the lab bench. What funding sources are out there? How different stages of vaccine development work, their regulatory aspect, intellectual property protection, how development is driven in academia, big pharma, and small startups. All in all, a much larger industry than what my institute alone did, so super exciting. Basically, I was keen on seeing what this management world looks like, the different roles involved in the process, and what career paths could work for me. To do so, I needed to approach people at this summit. I correctly so realized that I would be the youngest and the least experienced person in the room with a bunch of questions and little to offer in return. Some individuals gladly share their experience and offer coaching advice, but others would think, so, you're working on a vaccine prototype for your PhD? Well, good for you. I better go talk to the folks from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to see if they can fund my project. So I prepared for the meeting. I looked up the questions for my project and for career advice and a couple of introduction phrases to help me start the conversation. I also rehearsed a short pitch on how I would present myself and made sure to signal that I'm interested in a non-academic path in the vaccine industry after my PhD. Finally, I assumed that the big shots present at this event wouldn't show up in jeans and t-shirts, so I decided to invest in business attire. Before I dive into my business attire choice, let me also tell you about the second event that came up. It was an industry conference in Brussels, on vaccines once again, where my institute was scheduled to meet a number of medium to large pharma companies and see if there's interest in acquiring any of the technologies. I learned about this event by chance. We were filing a patent on our malaria vaccine system, and the patent officer mentioned that this event is a good starting point to showcase our technology. The business development officer would go there, so I need to brief her on what we can share. Scientists weren't typically invited to pitch directly at such events. At times, they may not know that such meetings are happening, as intellectual property belongs to the institute. An exception would be high-profile projects with clearly a lot of potential, and mine was not there yet. Also, if you invite scientists, too many people would need to travel to Brussels, given so many projects to showcase, and scientists are paid to work at the bench, right? Plus, there is a dedicated business development person hired to do just that, who would probably do a better job at pitching than scientists, who love to go into unnecessary details. This is a speed meeting event after all. I'm saying this with a bit of sarcasm because it's partially true, but partially a stereotype around scientists that is not always correct. Anyway, I dared to ask if I can tag along and present my project. They said yes, so I coordinated my travels with the other lady. I don't know if I made a good pitch of the technology, but I certainly felt that I'm speaking on the same level as my partner and the industry representatives we met. And aside of all the extensive pitch prep, my business attire certainly helped me level up. Now, finally, what was my vision of appropriate business attire back then? I wanted a suit. I wanted to be on par with my then role models from the Institute management team. And a full-fledged pantsuit was what I was after. Perhaps I was a bit biased towards pants because most of my role models happen to be men, but I also feel more confident in pants than skirts anyway. After screening my go-to stores, I was disappointed to find out that most combinations of trousers and blazers for women just don't look like my dream suit. A lot of these brands do a great job at the je ne sais quoi style, with silk blouses and soft blazers flowing down your shoulders. I had to up my game, and I went to Printemps, a high-end French store with a selection of rather expensive brands. I wasn't a stranger to this place, as I got a few beautiful dresses there, including the one for my wedding, but these were just a few purchases, as they represented a significant share of my monthly wage. The coming industry events qualified for a special investment, as I was starting to pave the way for my future career, so I was ready to spend as much as needed on a suit, provided I could still afford it. Beyond the luxury dresses and bags, I found what I needed. It was Joseph, a UK brand that has a tagline, "Timeless Luxury Essentials," which is very close to what I was looking for. They had a selection of grey, blue, and black suits with a number of cuts in just a few fabric choices, plus the tailoring service, so I could combine the ideal suit for my body shape. The result was stunning. The moment I tried it on, I don't think I've ever felt so confident. For the first time, I saw that I'm no longer just a scientist in the lab. I can become whoever I want to be. I got the suit in a heartbeat. I chose the one with pointy elevated shoulders, which I find a bit daring, but still really classy. Since then, it has become my power suit. It dates from 2013, but it is so resistant and timeless indeed. I still wear it for most important occasions. As you can tell, I don't wear it every day. It would have been dead by now. But that's because I came back to Joseph for another one a year later. And I have a number of other business style outfits for slightly more tuned down everyday circumstances, which I talk about in my video on the wardrobe and on my Instagram channel. So looking back, I think I made an important career investment early on. It's of course not only about the expensive business suit. It's about discovering different paths that I could take, specifically what roles would match my personal character better than a purely academic career that I knew I wasn't built for. That required stretching the boundaries of my everyday lab world. And it was also about projecting myself in those roles. And for a rather introverted person like myself, dressing for the role actually helps me get into character. And for instance, pitch my project as a business developer and no longer as a scientist. That's why I always try to prepare the talk and look like I own it at the same time. I hope you find some inspiration in this video and that you have all the elements you need to reach your professional goals. Cheers!